Hello, Manuel Guajardo here. I'm excited to build this Special Hobby Heinkel 115 in Finnish markers. I will show you how I weathered it and my assembly techniques for this complex seaplane. This kit was way bigger than I thought it would be, from massive floats to a huge wing area. Unlike my previous video builds, this will be built out of box. The Heinkel 115 first flew in 1937 and it was exported. Big thanks to Special Hobby for sending this kit. Our Special Hobby model is huge, with a fuselage length of 36 centimeters. I will start with the cockpit, which is very large and has a lot of space. My go-to glue is Tamiya Extra Thin Cement. I have to say, I'm impressed with the nice injection molded details. I applied Tamiya XF1 flat black as a base of the interior. This was followed by RLM2, which is XF20 according to Tamiya's labeling. What I love about modeling is layering up paint, weathering and details. It may not look like much at first, but watch what happens as the build-up continues. This is a multimedia kit that includes nice resin parts. It's amazing how big these old tube radios were back in World War II. These were essential for the various missions this aircraft flew. I use a fine brush to paint various radio details. With great care, I separate them using a side cutter. And then I glue them with super glue. For instruments, I applied a base layer of Tamiya XF2 white. I then use scissors to cut the detail film instrument covers. I use white glue for attaching the film. This kit comes with a nice set of photo-etched parts. I always use CA glue for them. Next is to start hand painting the kit's seats. Here's the radio operator seat for the Heinkel. I am a big fan of using photo etch parts to improve kit details. Now to the pilot's seat. I added additional styrene details to the seat assembly. Did you know that only a touch over 130 Heinkel 115s were built? By virtue of its numbers, it was a rare plane, even in World War II. For the weathering, I use oils diluted with white spirits. Here's more seat work from this Heinkel. This will be placed in the glass nose. The Heinkel 115 was surprisingly versatile. The Luftwaffe even used them for mine laying. Overall, Special Hobby did a great job with its included detail sets. After the oils are diluted with white spirits, I brush away the excess. Next, I paint the very tiny levers from the pilot's console. I use AK Interactive Streaking Grime as weathering wash for the interior. More white spirits to remove the excess. This technique helps me to add depth to the groups to improve the cockpit's appearance. I use AK Interactive chipping colors with a tiny sponge. To finish the interior weathering, I applied XF86 from Tamiya with my airbrush to seal paint and oils. I glued all seats with tiny amounts of superglue. Now to close the long fuselage. Large clamps were essential to ensure a good fit between fuselage halves. Now for the massive floats. Imagine how much parasitic drag this added in flight. These photo etch parts add great details to the pontoons. I use low stick glue pads to align the photo etch part over the float's surface. Check out these resin BMW 132K radial engines from the kit. Let's detail them, but first they need to be separated from the molding block. I use sheet styrene to scratch build-proper backings for the engines. Once I confirmed the new styrene bases would fit inside the cowls, I glued them to the engine with superglue. I airbrushed them with aluminum paint from Ammo. To add depth, I paint the backing using Tamiya flat black. The crankcase is painted with medium grey. Fun fact, the BMW 132 was based off the Pratt & Whitney R1690 Hornet. The 132 also powered the famous Junkers Ju-52. The air intakes are painted sea blue. This might seem counterintuitive, but it contrasts very nicely. I cut black wire to use as push rods and glued them with superglue. I use 1mm lead wire to make an ignition manifold around the crankcase. With a very sharp blade, I made tiny holes for each ignition wire. I use 0.2mm wire to replicate the ignition leads. After X22 clear from Tamiya, I applied a wash from Ammo to the engine. As usual, the excess is removed with white spirits. I carefully apply the small amount of CA glue. It's very easy to overdo it. To finish both engines, I applied XF86 flat clear from Tamiya. Now to the huge wings. The pontoon support struts were challenging to align. This model has a wingspan of almost 47 centimeters. This large size didn't make aligning it any easier. As you just saw, I used a ruler in conjunction with tape, rubber bands, the Mark I eyeball, and lots of glue. I fill large gaps at the wing joints with epoxy putty. I remove the excess using a moistened cotton swab. This part was hard. I added more than 10 complex clear parts and carefully used Tamiya extra thin cement to affix them. Final details are added before everything is closed up. I have to say, I think German aircraft are my favorite subjects to build. Helicopters are a close second. This is the only aftermarket I use for my HE-115, Montex canopy mask. I had to use kabuki tape over curved surfaces. This was time-consuming, but I'm happy with it. I sprayed RLM2 for the interior framework. Before applying the camouflage, I start with some pre-shading. Light blue was first applied to the surface. For the olive green, I used XF58 from Tamiya. I like Elastic Beauty from AK Interactive for airbrushing camouflage. Let's talk about the history of this amazing aircraft. The Heinkel 115 was originally Norwegian. Most Norwegian Heinkels escaped to the United Kingdom, but this one diverted to Finland. Once in Finnish hands, it flew transport and recon missions against the Soviets. It eventually made an emergency landing on a lake. The crew were taken prisoner, and the Finnish later scuttled the Heinkel with their own fighters. Wouldn't it be cool to see a Heinkel 115 restored for flight someday? What a sight that would be! This aircraft is about the same size as a regular Heinkel 111. I'm going to replicate the discoloration by the insignia as shown in this photo. A gloss coat is applied now that I finished painting. I love period photos of Finnish aircraft like this one. An I-16 and MS-406 can be seen next to our subject. AK interactive kerosene leaks and stains is my go-to to start weathering. A few white spirits drops allows this product to flow nicely throughout the panel lines. This aircraft was Finland's only Heinkel 115 to be painted in Finnish markings. Funny enough, some call it Jenny. This Heinkel kit is huge. If you'd like to see an even bigger Heinkel build, check out Tom's ICM swirling on our end screen. Same weathering techniques for these huge floats. Time for decals. The ones that came with the kit were great. Swastikas were actually used by Finnish airplanes before the German Luftwaffe applied them to their aircraft. As World War II came to a close, the Finnish adopted a more traditional style roundel for their planes. More weathering with AK interactive kerosene leaks and stains. For engine oil spills, I use fresh engine oil from ammo. To mix fresh staining with older staining, I diluted some of the wash with turpentine. I glued both engines to their respective cowlings with superglue. I find this step very satisfying. To simulate a chip surface, I apply XF16 aluminum from Tamiya with a very tiny sponge. I used a post-it note for easy panel masking. I used Tamiya's X9 smoke to simulate exhaust. To seal decals from weathering, I use XF86 flat clear from Tamiya. I was very relieved to see the transparencies stayed clear. More CA glue for the pontoons. Again, this model is very large and it was difficult to keep all the parts properly aligned. It took a lot of preparation and planning to get it where I wanted it. Notice how the exhausts were a little too orange at first, so I layered them with pigments to give them a more accurate representation. I hand-painted the photo edge parts for both the rear and front machine guns. I also hand-painted the very nice photo edge letters from the kit. I think they are very convincing. They were added to the model using superglue. For the external antenna, I used Ushi's fine-size rigging thread. This special hobby kit will give you a great scale replica of the real thing. I am very happy with how this turned out. Please let us know what you think of in the comments. Thanks!